You've been knocked down. I know you have. We all have, right? Those moments where everything feels like it's crashing down, when nothing seems to go your way and you're left asking, why me? Why now? But what if I told you that these very moments, these hardships that seem to be weighing you down, are actually invitations to something greater? What if I told you that every setback is in truth a setup for a comeback? Now really hear that every setback is a setup for a comeback. This isn't just a catchy phrase. This is a powerful truth, a truth that can transform the way you see every obstacle you've ever faced and every one you will face. Take a moment. Imagine that every challenge, every obstacle, every heartache you've ever faced is actually calling you to rise up. Yes, these moments, the ones that felt like they'd break you, are really moments designed to shape you, to make you stronger, to bring out something within you that would have stayed hidden otherwise. So I'm inviting you to shift your mindset. I want you to look at those setbacks, those so-called failures, and see them as stepping stones. Yes, stepping stones. You see, we've been conditioned to think that failure is the end, but it's not the end. No, failure is simply a redirection, a chance to build up resilience, a chance to learn, to grow, and to come back stronger than you were before. Think of it like this: you're climbing a mountain and suddenly there's a steep cliff. It's intimidating, right? It looks impossible. But what if that cliff was there to challenge you to see how badly you want to reach the peak? Wait, let's get this right. And I want you to remember this: nothing has to be perfect to be powerful. We think we have to be flawless, to be extraordinary, before we can make a comeback. But comebacks don't happen when you're perfect, they happen when you're determined. Comebacks happen when you have the guts to stand back up, look at what didn't work, and decide to try again. Let me share a story with you. It's a story that changed the way I look at failure. It's about a man who dreamed of being a writer. This man, despite his passion, faced rejection after rejection. The first book he submitted, rejected by 30 publishers. 30 people told him this isn't good enough. 30 people said, this won't work now. Imagine that. Imagine putting your heart into something and being told, no, it's not worth it. But instead of letting that no become his identity, he took it as a challenge. He knew he had something within him that was worth sharing. And do you know who this man was? Jack Canfield, co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul. A series that went on to sell millions of copies, inspiring people all over the world. If he had let those rejections define him, the world would have missed out on something incredible. Here's the kicker: every single one of us has that same potential. Yes, you have that within you. You don't need to be Jack Canfield. You don't need to be anyone else but yourself to know this truth. Every setback, every no you hear can be your invitation to push forward. Now, I want you to do something right now. Think of a time when you failed, really failed. A time when you were crushed, where you thought it was over, where you felt like you just weren't enough. Feel that moment. Remember the sting of it. Now ask yourself this: what did I learn from that experience? What strength did it bring out in me? Maybe it taught you resilience. Maybe it taught you humility. Maybe it taught you how to fight for yourself, how to believe in yourself when no one else did. See, setbacks are like little teachers in disguise. They're here to remind you of your strength, to remind you of your capacity, to wake you up to the vast potential that's been lying dormant within you. But you have to be willing to see it that way. You have to be willing to go beyond the surface of failure and see the gift beneath it. Let me ask you this: what if every setback was preparing you for the life you truly desire? What if, by going through that tough relationship, that career loss, that disappointment, you were actually being prepared for something greater? It's all too easy to fall into the trap of self-doubt, to believe that life has something against us when we face a setback. But what if that setback was actually life's way of saying, you're ready for more? Now, show me your strength. And here's something else to think about: the people you look up to, those who inspire you. Maybe it's a famous athlete, an artist, a scientist. I'll tell you one thing they all have in common: they face failure. they faced doubt. They faced setbacks that would have made most people give up. But they didn't stop. They didn't let that failure become the end of their story. They took it as fuel to keep going. You are no different. The same power, the same resilience, the same potential lies within you. It's there. It's been waiting patiently for you to acknowledge it. But you have to make the choice to see it. You have to make the choice to let go of the story that says, I failed, so I must not be good enough. No, what it really means is, I faced a challenge and I have the strength to overcome it. And I'll tell you something else sometimes. Those who face the biggest setbacks end up being the ones who have the most to give. There's a depth to them, a wisdom that comes from having been broken open and put back together. They know what it's like to struggle, they know what it's like to face doubt, and that experience gives them a strength, a compassion. That's rare. So are you willing to let your setbacks refine you rather than define you? Are you ready to see those obstacles not as blocks but as building blocks? Because once you start seeing your life this way, there's no going back. You realize that you're unstoppable, that every no is really a not yet, that every failure is just another chapter in your comeback story. Listen carefully, your comeback story is already being written. Every time you get back up, every time you choose to keep going, every time you believe in yourself just a little bit more, that story is unfolding. And it's powerful, it's inspiring, it's one that others will look at and say, if they could do it, maybe I can too. So right here, right now, I want you to commit. Commit to this truth that every setback is a setup for a comeback. Say it with me, every setback is a setup for a comeback. Believe it, let it sink in, let it guide you. Because once you do, no obstacle will seem too big, no failure too painful, and no challenge insurmountable. You are on a journey, and every step, every stumble, every moment is bringing you closer to the person you're meant to become. Failure doesn't define you, your response to it does. Let that sink in. I want you to feel the truth of this, not just with your mind, but with every part of your being. See, in life, we all stumble, we all fall short of our own expectations at times. But the way we respond, that's what shapes who we are. That's what determines whether we stay down or rise back up stronger, wiser, more resilient than before. Take a deep breath and consider this for a moment. Every time you failed, you were actually being given an opportunity. Yes, I said opportunity. An opportunity to pause, to reflect, to see what didn't work and why. And most importantly, an opportunity to learn something powerful about yourself. Failure is a feedback loop. It's the universe's way of showing you where you need to grow, where you can improve, where you can transform. Let's look at failure as a doorway to your truest potential. But here's the catch: the door is only unlocked when you're willing to respond to it from a place of courage, not fear. You decide what story you attach to your mistakes. You can see them as signs that you're inadequate, or you can see them as signposts on the road to something better. You can let those mistakes weigh you down, or you can let them lift you up. Imagine a sculptor. A sculptor doesn't start with a perfect statue. They start with a rough, imperfect block of marble. And slowly, patiently, they chip away at it, molding, refining, reworking. Failure is like that chisel, carving away the parts of us that don't serve our highest potential, slowly revealing the masterpiece within. Every mistake, every setback is another stroke of the chisel, another step toward becoming your truest self. So let me ask you this: are you willing to see failure as your ally? Are you willing to embrace it as part of the process rather than something to avoid or hide from? Now let's get practical here. Let's talk about how you actually shift your response to failure, because it's one thing to hear these ideas and it's another to live them. So here's what I want you to do the next time you find yourself faced with a mistake, a setback, something that didn't go as planned. First, pause, take a moment, take a breath, and instead of jumping into self-criticism or blame, simply observe, get curious, look at what happened as if you were an outsider, a friend who's there to support you. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What did this experience come to teach me? See, failure only has the power to define you when you don't learn from it. Once you've observed, step 2 is to reframe. And this is a powerful one. Reframing means that instead of seeing failure as an endpoint, you start seeing it as a stepping stone. You say, this didn't work out, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means I have some adjustments to make. I have new wisdom now that I didn't have before. This shift in perspective is like putting on a new pair of glasses, one that helps you see every experience, even the hard ones, with clarity and purpose. And then there's step 3, take action with intention. Failure doesn't have to paralyze you. Once you've learned from it, once you've reframed it, take a small step forward. It doesn't have to be huge, just a step that says, I'm willing to keep going. Because here's the truth, each time you take a step forward after a setback, you're building resilience. You're teaching yourself that failure is a part of the journey, not the end of it. Now, I want you to imagine your life a year from now if you approached every failure this way. Think about how powerful you'd feel, how much more freedom you'd have if you weren't afraid of making mistakes, if you weren't afraid of falling short. Imagine embracing each challenge as a teacher, as a guide pointing you toward your highest self. That is the power of changing your response to failure. Let's talk about a real-life example. Let's talk about Oprah Winfrey. Did you know she was told early in her career that she wasn't fit for television? Think about that for a second. One of the most successful television personalities of all time was once told she didn't have what it took. Now imagine if she'd let that comment define her. Imagine if she'd taken that setback and said, well, I guess this is it. I'm not good enough, but she didn't. She chose to use that feedback as fuel, as a stepping stone, as the push she needed to become even better. And because of her response to that so-called failure, she transformed not just her own life, but the lives of millions. Oprah is just one example, but here's the thing, you don't have to be Oprah to make this choice. You have that same potential within you. Every time you face a challenge, every time you encounter a no, you have a choice. Do I let this define me, or do I let it guide me to something greater? Maybe there's something in your own life right now that you've labeled as a failure. Maybe it's a relationship that didn't work out, a career move that didn't go as planned, or a personal goal you just couldn't reach. And maybe you're carrying around the weight of that failure like a burden. Well, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. You can set that burden down. You can look at that situation and say, thank you for the lesson. Thank you for showing me what doesn't work so I can get closer to what does. This shift from seeing failure as a label to seeing it as a lesson, this is the shift that changes everything. It's the difference between a life where you're afraid to take risks and a life where you're willing to step into the unknown with courage. Because here's the truth, life is about the journey, not just the destination. And on this journey, you're going to stumble. You're going to make mistakes. But those stumbles, those mistakes, they're simply part of the process. They're part of what makes you human, part of what makes you strong, part of what makes you you. So let's take a moment right here, right now, to reframe our relationship with failure. Let's choose to see every mistake as a milestone, every setback as a stepping stone, every no as a guide pointing us to a better path. Because failure doesn't define you, it never has. Only your response to it does. And here's the real secret: when you stop letting failure define you, when you start responding to it with grace, with courage, with curiosity, you start creating a life that's truly your own. A life where you're free to try, free to explore, free to be your fullest, most expansive self. So go ahead and make mistakes, fail boldly. Because every so-called failure is simply a sign that you're alive, that you're moving forward, that you're becoming everything you're meant to be. And that, my friend, is the greatest success of all. Right now, I want you to imagine this: behind every single failure you face, there's a story of resilience waiting to be told. Think about that for a moment. Behind every setback, behind every struggle, behind every time you thought, I can't go on, there's a part of you just waiting to break free, waiting to rise up, to turn those painful pages into a story of strength and transformation. You know, some of the world's greatest successes started with the humblest of beginnings. Think of people like Oprah Winfrey, who grew up in poverty and faced trauma, or J.K. Rowling, who was rejected over a dozen times by publishers before she saw her vision of Harry Potter come to life. These stories of success, they're really stories of resilience. Stories that remind us that we are not defined by our failures, but by how we choose to respond to them. You might be on the verge of a similar story right now, and that's exactly why you're here. Let's get real here. Every single one of us has a story. We all carry experiences, moments where we faced what felt like insurmountable obstacles. And sometimes we keep those stories buried, hidden away, as though there's something to be ashamed of. But what if I told you that those very moments, the ones that bring you to your knees, are the ones that will lift you the highest? Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror, looking at yourself, and instead of seeing just you, you see every experience, every struggle, every setback reflecting back. Now imagine rewriting that story. Imagine taking each hardship and looking at it as a chapter in a story that only gets richer, more resilient with each setback. This is your moment to rewrite your story. This is the moment to look at those setbacks not as roadblocks, but as redirections, as guides showing you, here's where you can grow. Here's where you can grow. Here's where you can dig deep and find that strength you never knew you had. Because here's the thing, my friend, life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes it throws you off course, it hands you detours and challenges you never asked for. But those very detours, they're there to test you, to see how committed you are to finding your true self. And the moment you recognize that, your whole perspective shifts. You start to realize that every time you fell, every time you thought this is the end, was actually a doorway into a deeper level of strength and understanding. You know what else is amazing? Think about the people you admire most, the ones who've achieved incredible things, the ones who inspire you. Each of them has faced their own failures, and many of them have faced worse setbacks than we might ever know. They don't just inspire us because of what they achieved, they inspire us because they had the courage to keep going, to keep rewriting their story, and you have that same courage within you. So here's a little exercise for you right now. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you can. Think about a time you failed. Maybe it was something big, or maybe it was something small. But picture it clearly in your mind. Now, instead of seeing it as something that went wrong, imagine it as a chapter in your story of resilience. A chapter that shows you not only what you've been through, but what you're capable of overcoming. What does that look like? What does that feel like to see yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as a warrior rising up again and again? Because that's the truth, isn't it? You're not defined by what you've been through, you're defined by how you rise up in the face of it. You're defined by the way you choose to keep going, to keep believing in yourself, even when the world says no. So let me ask you something powerful. Are you ready to rewrite your story? Are you ready to let go of the idea that failure defines you and instead let it refine you? Every moment of resilience, every time you got back up, is a line in your story, a mark of your strength, a reminder that you are capable of more than you realize. I want you to consider this: what if every setback you faced was a divine invitation to rewrite your story? What if, instead of feeling stuck, you were simply being asked to pivot, to shift, to grow into a greater version of yourself? Life isn't punishing you, it's inviting you to step up, to discover what you're made of. And I know in some of these moments you feel like the world is against you, like nothing you do will be enough. But let me share a secret. It's not the end of the story. It's just a chapter in a book that's far from over. And you, my friend, are the author of this book. You hold the pen. You get to decide what happens next. Imagine that power. Imagine realizing that every failure, every heartbreak, every challenge is just a comma, not a period. It's a pause, an opportunity to reflect, to gather strength, to get clear on who you are and what you're truly capable of. Because resilience isn't about avoiding failure, it's about embracing it as part of the journey. So the next time you face a setback, I want you to ask yourself, what is this teaching me? And then listen, truly listen, because sometimes life's greatest lessons come wrapped in the most challenging circumstances. And those lessons, they're there to help you grow, to push you into a new level of awareness, a new level of strength. You know, there's an old saying that goes, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor, and isn't that true? It's in the storms of life, the moments where we're pushed to our limits, that we find our strength. It's in the times of hardship that we uncover parts of ourselves that we never knew existed. It's in those moments that resilience is born. So I invite you to see each failure as a stepping stone, a building block of your story, the story of how you rose above, how you kept going, how you transformed every no into a new possibility. Because if you're willing to embrace that, you'll find that there's no limit to what you can achieve. Here's the truth: resilience is not about perfection. It's not about always getting it right. It's about learning, about growing, about choosing to keep going even when things get hard. It's about saying, yes, I fell, but I'm still here. I'm still standing, and I'm ready for what comes next. So what will your story of resilience look like? Imagine that moment. Maybe you've been there, maybe you're even there right now, when life feels like it's dragged you right down to the ground. Everything you were striving for seems out of reach. Every effort seems to have fallen flat, and you're wondering how you're ever going to get back up. Now let me invite you to see something different. When you're down, when you're close to the ground, do you know what you're closest to? The soil. And what is the soil if not the perfect place to plant new seeds? This is where growth begins. Not when you're standing at the top, already basking in success. Growth starts down here, where things are raw, uncertain, and yes, a little messy. This ground, the soil of defeat, of perceived failure, is where you have the richest opportunity to plant seeds that will sprout into something far greater than you might have imagined. Now let's get one thing straight: nobody likes being down. But here's the secret: the ground isn't here to keep you down. It's here to give you a fresh foundation, to provide the very nutrients for growth that you couldn't get from anywhere else. This ground of yours is fertile with experience, with lessons, with insight. This soil has been enriched by everything you've gone through, every setback you've survived. It's rich, it's ready, and now it's waiting for you to plant something beautiful. Think about this: when a seed is planted, it's buried, it's covered by dirt, it's hidden away in the dark. It doesn't look like anything special. But that seed has a destiny. That seed is wired to grow. And so are you. But first you have to choose what you're going to plant. Are you going to plant seeds of bitterness, of resentment, of fear? Or will you plant seeds of resilience, seeds of courage, seeds of possibility? Because whatever seeds you choose to plant in this soil, that's what's going to grow. You are not defined by how many times you get knocked down. You're defined by how many times you choose to rise. Every time you're down, you're not just close to the ground, you're close to a new beginning. Every moment you're there, you have the choice to plant something new, something that has the potential to rise even higher than you've been before. Let's talk about someone who understood this on a deep level. We all know Oprah Winfrey, but do we know her story? Oprah came from a background filled with hardship. She was told, no more times than you or I could probably count. She faced setbacks and challenges that most of us will never know. But instead of giving in, instead of letting those moments define her, she chose to plant something different. She planted seeds of self-belief, seeds of determination, seeds of love for what she wanted to do. And each time she got knocked down, she planted more seeds. Today, those seeds have grown into a legacy that reaches across the world. She used her moments of being down to build something far beyond what anyone else could see. Now that's powerful, isn't it? And here's the thing, we all have that same power within us. We might not feel like Oprah when we're down, but we don't have to. We just have to be willing to plant, to nurture, to believe that those seeds will sprout in time. We have to be willing to dig into that soil and put something good in it. Here's something to remember: where you're broken open is also where you can begin again. Every crack, every scar, every wound, it's all part of the soil. It's all part of what will feed those seeds and help them grow. Sometimes it's through the very cracks of what's broken that light enters, that new life begins. Think about that the next time you feel you've fallen apart. You're not falling apart, you're breaking open, and that's where the seeds of your growth can take root. And let's get real here, growth isn't instant. When you plant a seed, you don't see a tree the next day. That seed has to be nurtured, cared for. It needs sunlight, it needs water, it needs time. And your dreams, your comeback, they need the same. Be patient with your growth. Just because you don't see progress immediately doesn't mean it's not happening. A lot of growth happens beneath the surface, out of sight, where roots are taking hold, where strength is being built. I want you to picture this in your mind. Imagine that you're standing in a vast, fertile field. You've got seeds in your hands, but it's up to you what you plant. Every experience, every challenge, every defeat, those are the seeds you're holding. You can plant them in bitterness, or you can plant them in purpose. Choose the seeds of growth, of resilience. Because when those seeds sprout, they won't just create flowers, they'll create a whole field, a whole landscape of beauty, strength, and purpose. Think about that. Think about the fact that everything you've ever gone through, everything that's knocked you down, everything that's hurt you, has also given you the power to rise. When you're down, that's not the time to give up. That's the time to plant. That's the time to get intentional. That's the time to decide what you're going to create in that soil. Because let me tell you, you are powerful beyond what you can even imagine. You are the gardener of your own life, and this ground, this moment, this hardship, it's the place where your dreams can take root. And I'll leave you with this thought: when you're down, you're in the perfect position to look up. When you're on the ground, you've got the whole sky right above you. That's your potential. That's your potential. All you have to do is decide what you're going to plant, and trust that in time, with patience, with love, with faith, those seeds will grow. Because just like every seed contains the blueprint for something magnificent, every one of your challenges contains the possibility for greatness. It's all there, ready for you to plant, ready for you to grow, ready for you to row, ready for you to rise. Imagine this: you are the hero of your story. Not the sidekick, not the background character, but the central figure. And every challenge, every rejection, every no you encounter is simply a redirection toward your path, guiding you to the right. Yes, I want you to take that in, really feel it, because it's easy to let life convince us otherwise, isn't it? That those no's mean we aren't enough, that those doors closing in our face mean we should stop. But what if I told you every no is just life pointing you in a better direction? When you look back on the journey of your life, you'll see it clearly. All those no's weren't rejections, they were redirects. They were the universe saying, not this way, but that way, like a compass constantly pointing you toward the right path. Because as the hero of your story, the power to reach your dreams has always been within you. And the struggles, they're here to shape you, to strengthen you, to reveal just how resilient you are. Think about the greatest heroes, the ones who inspire us. Heroes don't become heroes by gliding through life without resistance. No, heroes rise because of the obstacles they overcome, the challenges they face. The hero's journey needs struggle, needs moments of defeat, because that's where true strength is born. That's where the hero within you is forged. When life says no, That's not the end of the story, it's just the beginning of a new chapter, one where you grow and become more than you ever imagined. You see, the world may tell you to fear rejection to avoid failure, but here's the truth. Every no brings you one step closer to your yes. Every single time you're told no, you're actually moving closer to the place where you're meant to be. Let me say that again, because this one's important. Every no is a step toward the right. Yes. Let me share a story with you, a story about someone who had had every reason to give up, who faced rejection over and over, and yet chose to keep going. Have you heard of J.K. Rowling? Before she became one of the most successful authors in the world, her manuscript for Harry Potter was rejected by 12 publishers. 12 times she was told no, 12 times the world said, not good enough. But here's where the magic lies. She didn't let those no's stop her. She didn't let them define her. She kept believing in her story, kept believing in herself. And because she kept going, she found the one publisher who finally saw the magic she had created. Imagine if she had stopped at that first rejection, or the second, or the 10th. Imagine if she had let those no's convince her that she wasn't meant to be an author. We wouldn't have Harry, Hermione, or Hogwarts. Her story wouldn't exist, and millions of people wouldn't have been touched by her words. And why? Because she chose to keep moving forward, to trust that every rejection was leading her closer to the right path. Now, I want you to think about your own life. Think of a time when you heard no, a time when a door closed, when an opportunity slipped through your fingers. What if that no was actually guiding you towards something better? Think about it. How many times have you looked back and realized that something you once wanted so desperately would never have truly fulfilled you? How many times have you seen that those no's protected you, that they pushed you in a direction that ultimately brought you more joy, more alignment than you could have imagined? Every no you've ever heard is part of a larger story, one that's guiding you toward the right yes. And this journey, this hero's path you're on, it's not just about the destination. It's about who you're becoming along the way. Because every challenge, every setback, every rejection is here to awaken a strength within you that you might not have known was there. It's here to show you just how powerful, how resilient, how incredible you are. Imagine the journey like climbing a mountain. There are steep cliffs, loose rocks, storms that come out of nowhere. You might stumble, you might fall, but with every step, with every challenge, you're becoming stronger. And every time you hear a no, it's like a signpost saying, not this way. Try another path, so you keep going, you keep climbing, and eventually you'll reach that peak. You'll look back and see that every no was guiding you, shaping you, molding you into the hero you're meant to be. Let me ask you this, are you willing to see yourself as the hero of your own story? Are you ready to let those no's become stepping stones instead of stumbling blocks? Because when you embrace this perspective, your whole world shifts. Suddenly, rejections aren't failures, they're redirections. Closed doors aren't the end, they're just a nudge to look for the open ones. Let me tell you about someone else who faced his share of no's. His name was Colonel Sanders. He had a recipe, a secret recipe for fried chicken, and he believed in it with all his heart. But do you know how many times he was told no? 1,009. That's right, he was rejected 1,009 times before he found someone who believed in his recipe. Most people would have given up after 5 rejections, 10 rejections, maybe 20. But Colonel Sanders, he kept going. He knew that each no was leading him closer to that one yes he needed. And because he kept going, he created a brand that became a household name worldwide, Kentucky Fried Chicken. So let me ask you, how many no's would it take for you to stop? And what if I told you that the next no is the one that will bring you closer to your breakthrough? Every great story, every inspiring journey is filled with moments of rejection, with chapters that feel heavy, moments that test our patience, our courage, our resilience. But these are the moments that define us. These are the moments where we get to choose, will I let this no break me, or will I let it make me? And here's the powerful part, you have the choice. Every time you face a setback, every time life closes a door, you have the choice to stand back up, to keep going, to believe that you are worthy of the life you desire. No one else can give you that belief. It has to come from within. Let me bring you in on a little secret, one that's so simple and yet so profound. The universe is always conspiring in your favor. Yes, even when it seems like it's not. Even when you're hearing no after no, when you feel like you're walking through the dark. Those no's aren't there to break you, they're there to prepare you, to bring you to the place where you're truly meant to be. Here's what I want you to do. The next time you hear no, I want you to pause. Take a deep breath and say to yourself, this is guiding me to something better. Say it out loud if you need to. Let it sink in and believe it. Let that no remind you that you are on a journey where every rejection is just a step closer to the right.
Yes.
Because you are the hero of your story. This is your journey, and every twist, every turn, every setback is here to make you stronger. It's here to teach you something, to help you grow. So don't fear the no's. Embrace them. Let them guide you, let them strengthen you, because one day you'll look back and you'll see that every no was just a step on the path to becoming the person you were meant to be. And remember this, because it's important, the world is waiting for your story. Yes, you. You with your dreams, with your passions, with that spark within you that no one else has. Don't let a few no's keep you from sharing that gift. Don't let them stop you from becoming who you're meant to be. Because every no is just a setup for the right yes. And that yes is coming. Keep going. Believe in it. Believe in yourself. Failures. What if I told you that these aren't really failures at all? What if they're just stepping stones with different names? See, that's the beautiful thing about life. It hands us all kinds of experiences, the ones that we cherish and celebrate, and then the ones we call mistakes or failures. But here's the thing, there is no such thing as a mistake in the grand scheme of your life. Each moment, each so-called failure is building resilience, refining your vision, and moving you closer to the success that's waiting for you. When you hear the word failure, think about what comes up. Disappointment, regret, self-doubt. But what if every single one of those failures was actually the universe's way of placing another stepping stone on your path? Each misstep, each detour, each closed door is a step forward. Yes, forward. Because you see, there is no backward on this journey, only forward, even if sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Let me give you something to hold on to when you look at the people who have achieved great success, the ones you admire. Do you know what every one of them has? Failures. A trail of them. Stories of things that didn't work out, things they tried and stumbled over, dreams that were crushed and rebuilt. But what they all discovered is that these failures were actually refining their path, making them better, stronger, more aligned with who they were becoming. Imagine you're walking down a long road toward a vision of success that you hold for yourself. Along that road you encounter stones, and let's call those stones setbacks now. A lot of people see those stones, those failures, and they turn back. They think, maybe I'm not cut out for this, but you listening right now are different, because I'm going to tell you something that will change the way you see those stones forever. They're not there to stop you. No, those stones are the universe's way of saying, step here. Place your foot right here, because every one of those stones is preparing you for the next stage of your journey. Every time you trip, you're learning to catch your balance. Every time you stumble, you're building resilience. Every time you think, I can't do this, and you keep going anyway, you're becoming stronger, wiser, more in tune with your purpose. Think about this. What if the moments that you label as failures were actually the ones that shape you the most? What if they're there to help you develop the courage to keep going? Because that's the thing about resilience, it doesn't come to you in the good times. It's born in those moments when you're face down, unsure, and the easiest thing would be to quit. That's when resilience steps in. It says, are you willing to try one more time? And let's get real. Success rarely comes in the way we expect it. It doesn't show up with a big sign saying, "Here it is." No, most often it's the quiet triumphs, the tiny decisions, the little yeses. You say to yourself after you've stumbled, after you've doubted, after you thought you couldn't go on, those moments are the ones that make you. Let's talk about a man who exemplified this, Thomas Edison. When Edison was working on the light bulb, do you know how many times he failed? Over 1,000 times. Imagine that. Over 1,000 times he tried, and over 1,000 times he didn't succeed. But do you think he looked at those experiments as failures? No, he didn't. He saw each one as a step closer to his goal. Each one was a stepping stone, refining his method, teaching him what didn't work so he could get to what did. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work now." That's the mindset of a man who understood that failure is just a stepping stone to success. Are you willing to trust? Are you willing to see each step forward, each misstep, each failure as a part of the path? Because it is. Success is not a straight line. It's filled with detours, backtracks, side paths that teach you things you didn't even know you needed to learn. Sometimes you don't realize how strong you are until you're asked to rise up after falling down. You don't realize the power within you until it's been tested by the challenges you face. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to think of a time you failed, a time you thought, "This is it, I can't go on." Hold that moment in your mind. Feel the weight of it. Now ask yourself, what did I gain from that experience? Maybe you gained clarity, a deeper understanding of yourself, a new direction. Maybe you gained resilience, because every failure holds a gift, every one. But it's up to you to find it, to uncover it, to use it as a stepping stone on your journey. Let me share a secret with you. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come right after we're ready to give up. It's like the universe is testing us, saying, "Do you really want this?" And when you keep going, when you push through, you discover strength you didn't know you had. Those stones, those failures, they start to form a path, and you look back one day and realize they led you exactly where you were meant to go. So the next time you feel like you failed, I want you to remember something. Say to yourself, "This is just a stepping stone. I'm moving forward," and keep moving. Because every step you take, no matter how small, no matter how challenging, is bringing you closer to the vision of yourself that's waiting on the other side of those challenges. This is your journey, and every stone on your path, every misstep, every so-called failure is there to teach you, to guide you, to make you into the person you're becoming. Embrace those stepping stones, trust the process, and remember you are always moving forward. Always. Thanks for joining me today. If you found value in this discussion, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more motivational content. Share your thoughts in the comments below.